Hi, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to be setting up the canvas that we need to use to draw our animation and get everything running. So before we actually start animating and creating our shapes and all of the JavaScript that we need to get it working, we actually need to learn how to create an HTML element that will allow us to do this. And the way we're going to do it is through an element called canvas. Now this is just a regular HTML tag that you can add to any HTML. And what it will allow you to do is give you a frame to actually create all of these shapes and animations through JavaScript. So the way you do that is just through the canvas tag, which is just typed as so, and that will create a box or a window that you can use to draw all of your shapes. Now, in order to identify it and select it through JavaScript to get it set up, we do need to give it some identifiable information, although you can just select it using the DOM and the element selector. But it's a good idea to give it an ID or a class, especially if you are creating a huge page with a lot of information. You're going to want to make all of your canvas elements identifiable. So just like any regular HTML element, we're going to give it an ID. So we're just going to call this canvas for now. And then we're going to give it some special properties that apply to canvas. So what we're going to do is explicitly define the width and height of the canvas in pixels so that we can actually get it set up. Now it does come with a default size, obviously, and we are going to be changing that size later on in the later videos once we actually get our canvas set up. But for now, I just want something that I can work with. So we're going to make this a 200 by 200 box. So using the width and height properties, you just type in two numbers and that will give you the exact width and height that you need to work with this canvas. Now in order to actually see it on our page, I'm also going to give it a style attribute and just give it a border so that we can actually see it. So we're just going to give it a basic 1 pixel solid black border. And if we refresh the page, you can see we have our canvas now. So there isn't much we can do at this point since all of the work we're going to be doing is done through JavaScript. So what we need to do is go over to a linked JavaScript file. So you can see that this isn't linked here. And then what you do is type in some code to actually import this into our JavaScript using the JavaScript DOM. So I'm just going to be using basic vanilla JavaScript, although you can use jQuery to do this. So the first thing you need to do is actually select the canvas itself. So just like you do with any other regular HTML element, you're going to create a variable and then use the document.querySelector or any other selector to select your canvas. So I'm just going to call this something pretty basic so that we can use it repeatedly. I'm just going to call it C for now. And then document.querySelector. And since the query selector uses CSS selectors, we have to insert the hash before the canvas ID tag that we gave it, since this is an ID. Now that we've done that, we have our canvas imported into our document. But what we need to do now is import something called the context. So what the context is going to allow us to do is give us a variable to run all of the commands, create all of the shapes, work with the canvas itself. So what you're going to do is create another variable. You can call this context, CT, CTX, whatever you want. I'm just going to call it CT. And then what you do is take the previously selected canvas that you have here, dot get context, and then 2D. Now what this is going to do is essentially give you a placeholder variable, or not really a placeholder, but just a variable that you can work with to draw and interact with the canvas. So from here, we are actually going to be doing everything that we need to create our animations on here. So although it doesn't look like much, this is all the setup you need to get it working. Now the last thing we need to do, of course, is link our file to, link our JavaScript file to our HTML. So at the end of the document here, I'm just going to add a script tag and add a source, index.js. So this is effectively just going to link our script so that now we can use all our JavaScript in here and apply it to the canvas. So just to make sure, let's open up the developer console. I'm using Control-Shift-J, Command-Shift-J if you're on Mac, and we're just going to check that our variables are imported. Say C, you can see it's here, CT, and the context is here. Alright, so now that we have our canvas set up, we can go and actually start creating shapes, working with our animations, and getting it set up, which is what we're going to do in the next upcoming videos.